Female CEO caught the janitor dad sleeping in his car. What she did next shocked the entire company. She thought she'd caught a worker breaking the rules, but when she opened that car door and saw a little girl curled up in the back seat, her next move didn't just save a family, it flipped an entire company upside down. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The night air wrapped around the office building like a heavy blanket, bringing with it the familiar quiet that Samuel Ortiz had grown to appreciate during his late shifts. His worn mop made its final sweep across the lobby floor, leaving behind the fresh scent of pine cleaner and the satisfaction of a job well done. His muscles ached from hours of scrubbing, mopping, and lifting, but he couldn't rest just yet. Samuel gathered his cleaning supplies, methodically checking each item off his mental list as he returned them to the storage closet. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as he hung up his gray uniform vest, replaced by the faded blue sweater he'd worn for the past 3 years. It still smelled faintly of Maria's favorite laundry detergent. The thought of his late wife made his chest tighten. He pushed the feeling down, like he always did, and focused on locking up the closet. The keys jingled softly in his calloused hands, hands that once fixed cars for a living, before the garage closed down and left him scrambling for whatever work he could find. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for his rusted sedan, parked in the furthest corner where the security cameras had a blind spot. Samuel's footsteps echoed across the concrete as he approached the car, his breath visible in the cool night air. He moved quietly, not wanting to wake Sophia. Through the back window, he could see her small form curled up under a pile of blankets they'd collected from various donation centers. Her dark hair spilled across the makeshift pillow made from her stuffed backpack. Even in sleep, she clutched her sketchbook, her most prized possession. Samuel eased the driver's door open, careful to minimize the familiar creak of aging hinges. He settled into the worn seat, the springs groaning beneath his weight. From the paper bag beside him, he pulled out a slightly squashed sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, made with the last of their bread. As he ate in small, measured bites, Samuel's eyes drifted to the photo tucked into the sun visor. Maria's smile beamed back at him, frozen in time at their favorite park, before the cancer took hold. Sophia had inherited that same bright smile, though Samuel hadn't seen it as often lately. "I'm sorry, mi amor," he whispered to the photo, his voice barely audible. "This isn't the life I promised you for our little girl." The medical bills had drained their savings first, then came the funeral expenses. The rent became impossible on a janitor's salary, and their landlord's patience had run out 3 months ago. But Samuel had made one promise he refused to break. Sophia would not end up in foster care. He'd seen too many families torn apart that way. In the back seat, Sophia shifted in her sleep, mumbling something about art class. Samuel turned to watch her, his half-eaten sandwich forgotten in his hands. She was so brave, never complaining about their situation, always finding ways to make others smile with her drawing. Just yesterday, she'd left a detailed sketch of a butterfly on her teacher's desk, complete with a thank you note for helping her with math. "Te prometo, mi pequeña," Samuel whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise you, things will get better. We'll have a real home again." He reached back to gently tuck the blanket more securely around her shoulders. "Your mama would be so proud of how strong you are." The streetlights cast long shadows across the parking lot, their yellow glow creating patterns on the dashboard. Samuel finished his sandwich in small bites, saving the crust for breakfast. The night was getting colder, and he pulled his sweater tighter around himself. From the glove compartment, he retrieved their dwindling envelope of cash. By candlelight, he counted it again, a ritual that brought more worry than comfort these days. There was barely enough for another week of gas and food. But Sophia's birthday was coming up, and he'd been saving a few dollars from each paycheck to buy her new colored pencils. Her current set was worn down to stubs, though she never complained. "Just need to hold on a little longer," he murmured to himself, tucking the envelope away. "Something will change. It has to." The familiar weight of exhaustion pressed down on him as he reclined the driver's seat as far as it would go, which wasn't far, given the boxes of their remaining possessions stacked in the back. Samuel closed his eyes, trying to find a comfortable position in the seat that had become his bed. Through the windshield, the streetlight above them flickered erratically, casting intermittent shadows across his face. In the distance, a siren wailed, then faded. The sound of a passing car made him tense briefly before it moved on. These were the normal sounds of their nights now, the urban lullaby that accompanied their hidden struggle. Sophia's steady breathing from the back seat provided a rhythm that always helped him drift off. Samuel whispered one last prayer, the same one he'd repeated every night since they'd lost their apartment. Please God, keep her safe, keep her warm, let her dream of better days. His body gradually relaxed as sleep began to claim him, though his mind still worked through tomorrow's challenges. He needed to wake up early enough to drive Sophia to the public restroom where she could wash up before school. Then he'd need to find a new parking spot for tomorrow night. They never stayed in one place too long. The last thing Samuel noticed before sleep took him was the gentle tap of a branch against the car window, driven by the night breeze. His breathing deepened, joining Sophia's in the quiet symphony of their shared space. While the city continued its nighttime routine around their hidden sanctuary, the pre-dawn darkness blanketed the corporate parking lot as Claire Whitmore's sleek black Mercedes pulled in, its headlights sweeping across the nearly empty spaces. At 5:30 in the morning, she expected solitude. It was her routine, arriving early to prepare for the day's meetings in peaceful, quiet. Through her tinted windows, something caught her eye. A rusty silver sedan, parked in the far corner under a flickering streetlight, showed signs of movement inside. Claire's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She'd heard reports of vandalism in nearby businesses, and the thought of trouble in her parking lot made her jaw clench. After parking in her reserved spot, Claire sat for a moment, debating whether to call security. The practical voice in her head told her to go inside and let someone else handle it, but years of making tough decisions had taught her to face problems directly. Stepping out of her car, Claire's heels clicked against the asphalt as she approached the sedan. Her navy blazer offered little protection against the morning chill, but she kept her posture straight, projecting authority with each step. As she drew closer, she could make out a figure slumped in the driver's seat. Claire rapped her knuckles sharply against the window. "Excuse me?" The man inside jerked awake, his eyes wide with panic. Claire recognized him immediately. Samuel Ortiz, one of the night janitors. Before she could process this revelation, movement in the back seat drew her attention. A small head poked out from beneath a mound of blankets, and Claire found herself staring into the sleepy brown eyes of a young girl. "Mr. Ortiz?" Claire's voice carried both surprise and concern. "What's going on here?" Samuel fumbled with the window crank, finally managing to lower it. "Miss Whitmore, I'm sorry. His voice trembled slightly as he tried to straighten his rumpled shirt. "Daddy?" The little girl's voice was soft and confused. "Is it time for school already?" Claire's expression shifted from suspicion to disbelief. "Is that your daughter?" Samuel nodded, his shoulders sagging. "Yes, ma'am. This is Sophia." He turned to the back seat. "Sophia, this is Miss Whitmore. She's in charge of the building where I work." Sophia rubbed her eyes and offered a sleepy smile. "Hello, Miss Whitmore. Your building is very pretty. I like the big windows." The child's innocent comment struck Claire like a physical blow. She took in the scene before her. The pile of neatly folded clothes in the passenger seat, a small cooler wedged in the footwell, and what appeared to be school supplies organized in the back. "Mr. Ortiz, are you?" Claire paused, choosing her words carefully. "Are you living in this car?" Samuel's face flushed with shame, but he met her gaze directly. "Yes, ma'am, for the past 2 months." His voice dropped lower. "Since my wife passed." "Your wife?" Claire's tone softened involuntarily. "Cancer," Samuel explained, his hands fidgeting with his worn wedding ring. "The medical bills. They took everything we had saved. I tried to keep up with rent, but—" He glanced back at Sophia, who had pulled her blanket around her shoulders like a cape. "The foster system wanted to take her. I couldn't. I won't let that happen." Claire felt her carefully constructed professional demeanor crack. The morning light was growing stronger, illuminating Sophia's face. She had her father's gentle eyes, but there were shadows beneath them that no child should have. "You work night shifts," Claire said, pieces clicking into place. "And then sleep here?" Samuel nodded. "Sophia stays with our neighbor during my shift, Mrs. Rodriguez. She watches her for a small fee. We come here afterward because it's safe, well lit." He swallowed hard. "I know it's not right to use the parking lot this way. If you need us to leave?" "No," Claire said quickly, surprising herself. "No, that's not." She stopped, thrown off balance by the situation. Here was a father choosing homelessness over losing his child, sleeping in a car between shifts, yet still showing up every night to work without complaint. Sophia's voice broke through the tension. "Daddy makes sure I never miss school," she said proudly. "And I got an A on my math test yesterday." That's wonderful," Claire managed, her throat unexpectedly tight. She looked at Samuel again, seeing him differently now, not just as an employee, but but as a father fighting impossible odds to keep his family together. I should let you get ready for your day, Claire said finally, taking a step back. Mr. Ortiz, we'll talk more about this later. Samuel's expression was a mixture of resignation and dignity. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your understanding. As Claire walked toward the building entrance, her heels clicking with less certainty now, she couldn't shake the image of Sophia's eyes. Bright and trusting, despite everything, the weight of what she discovered settled heavily on her shoulders. Her mind, usually focused on quarterly reports and shareholder meetings, kept circling back to that rusty sedan and its precious cargo. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, but Claire barely noticed. For the first time in years, her carefully ordered world felt off balance, shaken by a janitor and his daughter who had turned her parking lot into their home. Samuel's mop moved in slow, methodical strokes across the polished floor of the office building. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows, creating patches of warmth on the tiles he'd just cleaned. His shoulders felt stiff from sleeping in the car, but his movements remained precise and thorough. The job was all he had left. Every few minutes, someone would hurry past, their expensive shoes clicking against the damp floor. Samuel kept his eyes down, but he could feel their stares today. Had Miss Whitmore told them about finding him in the parking lot? The thought made his chest tight with anxiety. Morning, Mr. Ortiz. The cheerful voice made him look up. Jenny from accounting always greeted him, one of the few who bothered to learn his name. She carefully stepped around his wet floor signs, offering a kind smile. Good morning, Miss Chen, he replied quietly, grateful for the normal interaction. As the morning wore on, Samuel worked his way through the building's west wing, paying special attention to the conference rooms. He could hear fragments of important-sounding meetings through the doors, discussions about market shares, and quarterly projections that meant little to him. His world was measured in different numbers. How many hours until Sophia finished school? How many dollars left until payday? How many nights they could stretch their groceries? Just before noon, his radio crackled. Mr. Ortiz? It was Marcus from the front desk. Miss Whitmore would like to see you in her office. Samuel's stomach dropped. He'd been dreading this moment since dawn. I'll be right there, he responded, his voice steady despite his nerves. The executive floor felt like a different world. The carpet was thicker, the lighting softer, and the air seemed to hum with importance. Samuel knocked gently on the heavy wooden door marked Claire Whitmore, CEO. Come in, called a clear voice. Claire's office was spacious but not showy, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. She sat behind a large desk, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed some documents. Please, sit down, she said, gesturing to one of the chairs across from her desk. Samuel perched on the edge of the seat, his worn work uniform feeling especially shabby in these surroundings. Miss Whitmore, about this morning. She held up a hand, silencing him. Mr. Ortiz, how long have you worked for this company? 3 years next month, ma'am. And in that time, have you ever been late? Called in sick? Had any complaints about your work? No, ma'am. Claire removed her glasses, fixing him with a direct look. That's what your file shows as well. Perfect attendance, excellent performance reviews. She paused. Why didn't you come to HR when things got difficult? Samuel's hands tightened in his lap. I couldn't risk it. If anyone official knew about our situation. He swallowed hard. Sophia is all I have left. I can't lose her. Something softened in Claire's expression. She stood up and walked to a side door in her office. Come with me, please. Samuel followed her through the door into what looked like a small apartment. A living area with comfortable furniture opened into a kitchenette, and he could see doors leading to what he assumed were bedrooms. This is our executive guest suite, Claire explained. We keep it for visiting board members or important clients. She turned to face him. It's been empty for months. Samuel's heart began to race as he understood what she was suggesting. Miss Whitmore, I couldn't. It's temporary, she cut in, her tone businesslike. Just until you can find proper housing. The alternative is having an employee sleeping in our parking lot, which is hardly appropriate. I don't want charity, Samuel said quietly, his pride struggling with his desperate need for help. Claire's expression sharpened. This isn't charity, Mr. Ortiz. It's practical business sense. I can't have my most reliable maintenance staff exhausted from sleeping in a car. Besides, her voice softened slightly, that little girl deserves a proper bed. The mention of Sophia made Samuel's resistance crumble. He thought of her trying to do homework by streetlight, washing up in public restrooms, putting on a brave face every morning. It would only be temporary? He asked. Strictly temporary, Claire confirmed. And completely confidential. The suite has its own entrance from the side street. You can come and go without going through the lobby. Samuel looked around the space again, at the clean counters, the soft couch, the door that promised a real bathroom. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by continuing to do your job well, Claire replied crisply, already heading back to her office. The keys are on the counter. The suite is available whenever you're ready. That evening, after picking up Sophia from Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, Samuel drove to the side entrance Claire had described. Sophia held his hand as they climbed the stairs, curious but quiet. She'd learned to be careful with her excitement, to take their hard times in stride with a maturity that sometimes broke his heart. When he opened the door to the suite, however, her composure vanished. "Daddy?" she squealed, dropping her backpack and running into the living room. "Look at the couch, and there's a TV." She darted into the kitchen, touching everything with wondering fingers. "We can cook real food." Samuel followed her as she discovered each new treasure. The soft beds, the fully stocked bathroom, the closets with hangers waiting for their few clothes. When she saw the shower, her eyes went wide. "Can I take a shower, Daddy? A real shower with hot water?" "Of course, mija," he said, his throat tight with emotion. While Sophia showered, singing happily to herself, Samuel stood in the living room, taking it all in. The space wasn't large or fancy, but it felt like a palace compared to their car. He thought of Miss Whitmore's stern kindness, her practical approach to helping them without wounding his pride. Sophia emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a fluffy towel, her wet hair dripping on her shoulders, her face glowing with joy. She ran to Samuel and threw her arms around his waist, squeezing tight. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered against his uniform. "This is the best thing ever." Samuel hugged her back, breathing in the clean scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her small body against his. For the first time in months, his daughter would sleep in a real bed, safe and warm. The early morning sun painted golden stripes across the company cafeteria's pristine tables. Samuel sat across from Sophia, watching her devour scrambled eggs and toast with the enthusiasm only an 8-year-old could muster. Her legs swung back and forth under the table, not quite reaching the floor. "Slow down, Mija," Samuel said softly, unable to hide his smile. "The food's not going anywhere." Sophia looked up, her cheeks full like a chipmunk's. She tried to speak, but could only manage a muffled, before returning to her breakfast. It had been weeks since they'd had a proper meal, and Samuel's heart ached with both gratitude and shame. The cafeteria was starting to fill with early morning employees. Samuel noticed their curious glances, their whispered conversations. Some smiled warmly at Sophia, while others frowned with disapproval. He hunched his shoulders, trying to make himself smaller. "Daddy, can I have some paper and crayons?" Sophia asked, finally finishing her last bite of toast. "I want to draw something." "I don't know, honey. We shouldn't." "Here you go, sweetheart." "The cafeteria lady, Mrs. Thompson, appeared with some printer paper and a pack of markers. My grandkids always leave their art supplies here when they visit." Sophia's face lit up. "Thank you." She immediately started drawing, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Samuel checked his watch. "Sophia, I need to start my morning rounds. You remember where the guest suite is?" "Uh-huh. 3rd floor, end of the hall." She didn't look up from her drawing. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'll be good." He kissed the top of her head, nodding gratefully to Mrs. Thompson. As he pushed his cleaning cart through the building, his mind kept drifting back to Sophia. Maybe he should have taken her back to the suite instead of letting her stay in the cafeteria. But as the morning progressed, something unexpected happened. Jennifer from marketing found a colorful drawing on her desk, a rainbow with the words, "Thank you for your pretty smile," written in wobbly letters. She showed it to her colleagues, beaming. Mr. Peterson from accounting discovered a picture of himself, recognizable by his signature bow tie, with, "You look like a nice grandpa," scrawled beneath it. Instead of being offended, he laughed so hard his eyes watered. More drawings appeared throughout the morning. Simple, childlike sketches filled with honest observations and genuine gratitude. "Your glasses are sparkly like stars." "I like how you help people find their way," for the security guard. "Thank you for the yummy breakfast," for Mrs. Thompson. Samuel heard the murmurs as he worked, saw the smiles spreading across formerly stern faces. People started greeting him in the hallways, asking about Sophia. The atmosphere in the usually tense office shifted, becoming lighter, warmer. By lunchtime, the change was undeniable. The break room buzzed with conversation instead of hurried silence. People lingered at each other's desks, sharing Sophia's drawings and trading stories. Even the notorious rivals in sales were seen laughing together over a picture Sophia had drawn of them holding hands with "Be Friends" written above. "Your daughter is quite something," said Mark from It, stopping Samuel in the hallway. "She drew me fixing a computer with actual superhero cape. Made my day." Samuel's eyes stung. "She sees the good in everyone," he managed to say. Throughout the afternoon, Samuel noticed people working with renewed energy. The usual midday slump was replaced with productive buzz. Meetings ended on time, projects moved forward, and the usual complaints about deadlines were replaced with collaborative problem-solving. Sophia had set up a small art studio in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, surrounded by spare paper and her borrowed markers. Employees would stop by during their breaks, sitting with her while she drew. She asked them questions about their lives, their families, their dreams, all while creating her simple but heartfelt pictures. "Mr. Samuel," called out Sarah from Human Resources, "did you know Sophia drew the entire department as a garden? She said we help people grow." Her eyes were suspiciously bright. "We're putting it up in our conference room." As the workday wound down, Samuel found Sophia asleep on one of the cafeteria chairs. Markers scattered around her, dozens of drawings still waiting to be delivered. He carefully gathered her up, his heart full of love and wonder at this child who could touch so many lives with simple paper and colors. Later that night, Claire Whitmore walked through the quiet office, her heels clicking on the polished floors. She'd stayed late, reviewing quarterly reports, and now her tired eyes took in the transformed space around her. Every desk held at least one of Sophia's drawings. Some were pinned to cubicle walls, others propped up against computer monitors. Claire stopped at each one, reading the innocent messages, taking in the bright colors and crooked lines. Her own desk hadn't been spared. There, propped against her sleek laptop, was a drawing of herself. Sophia had depicted her in a purple dress, her favorite color, though she rarely wore it to work, surrounded by stars. The words beneath read, "Thank you for giving us a home. You are magic." For the first time in years, Claire felt something crack in her carefully maintained facade. A genuine smile spread across her face, warming her features and reaching her eyes. She touched the drawing gently, remembering another little girl who used to draw pictures just like these. Herself so many years ago, before life had taught her to guard her heart. The office, usually cold and impersonal at this hour, seemed to glow with the warmth of Sophia's artwork. Through the simple wisdom of a child, Claire saw her workplace transformed. Not just the decorations, but the spirit of the place had changed. One small act of kindness had rippled out, touching everyone in ways she never could with her policies and procedures. Claire sat at her desk, still smiling, the quarterly reports forgotten for the moment. As she studied Sophia's drawing more closely, she noticed tiny hearts drawn in the corners of the paper, each one carefully colored in different shades. Tomorrow's challenges would come, but for now, she allowed herself to simply feel the joy that Sophia had brought to her company. The company guest suite felt like a slice of heaven compared to their old sedan. Each morning, Samuel woke up on the pull-out couch, his body no longer aching from cramped car seats. He'd peek into the bedroom where Sophia slept peacefully in a real bed, her stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm. The sight always made his heart swell. Their morning routine had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Samuel would make breakfast using the suite's small kitchen, usually oatmeal with banana slices or toast with eggs. Sophia would emerge from her room, hair wild from sleep, and they'd eat together at the little table by the window. The morning sun would catch the silver chain around her neck, the one that had belonged to her mother. "Ready for school, Pequeña?" Samuel would ask, helping Sophia put on her backpack. The walk to school took exactly 18 minutes. They'd count the trees, spot squirrels, and sometimes play their special game, where Sophia would make up stories about the people and passing cars. Samuel treasured these moments. They felt normal, like they were just another father and daughter starting their day. After dropping Sophia off, Samuel would return to the suite to catch a few hours of sleep before his night shift. The cleaning supplies in his cart had become familiar friends. The lemony disinfectant, the soft swish of mops across floors, the hum of the vacuum. He'd work methodically through the building, taking pride in keeping everything spotless. But whispers had started following him through the hallways. "Did you hear?" a woman in accounting murmured to her colleague one evening while Samuel cleaned nearby. "Claire's letting him stay in the executive suite, for free." "Must be nice," her coworker replied. "My cousin's been on a waiting list for affordable housing for months." Samuel's grip tightened on his mop handle, but he kept his eyes down, pretending not to hear. In the break room, the conversations weren't much better. It sets a dangerous precedent, Derek from HR said loudly one day, not bothering to lower his voice as Samuel emptied the trash bins. What if every employee with problems expects the company to solve them? There are liability issues to consider. The shame that Samuel had pushed down began creeping back up his throat like acid. He thought of his father's words from long ago. A man provides for his family. He doesn't take handouts. But this wasn't just about his pride anymore. This was about Sophia having a safe place to sleep, a warm shower, a desk to do her homework. He'd swallow his pride 1,000 times over for that. Still, the comment stung. When Martha from marketing cornered him in the hallway with fake cheerfulness, asking how he'd managed to score such a sweet deal, Samuel felt his face burn. He mumbled something about needing to refill his cleaning cart and hurried away. The worst moment came when he overheard two executives talking near the elevator bank late one night. "Claire's gone soft," the first one said. "First the janitor moves in, then his kid starts leaving those childish drawings everywhere. This isn't a charity, it's a business. Maybe she sees something of herself in them," the other replied with a snicker. "Though I never thought she'd let emotions cloud her judgment like this." Samuel's stomach churned. He hadn't asked for any of this. He and Sophia had survived in their car, hadn't they? Maybe it would be better to leave before they caused more trouble for Claire, before the board members started questioning her leadership. That evening, Samuel tried to keep his worries hidden as he and Sophia ate dinner in the suite. He'd managed to make her favorite mac and cheese with hot dogs cut into little octopuses floating in the cheese sauce. Sophia chatted about her day at school, about the math test she'd aced, and the new friend she'd made named Jenny. But children are more perceptive than adults often give them credit for. Sophia pushed her mac and cheese around her plate, her fork scraping against the ceramic. "Daddy?" she asked suddenly, her voice small. "Yes, mija? Are we going to lose this place?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. Samuel set down his fork, searching for the right words. Sophia watched him with those big brown eyes, her mother's eyes, full of worry beyond her years. He opened his mouth to answer, but nothing came out. How could he explain the complexities of workplace politics to an 8-year-old? How could he tell her that their presence was causing problems for the one person who'd shown them kindness? The silence stretched between them, broken only by the quiet hum of the suite's air conditioning. Sophia was still waiting for his answer, her small fingers fidgeting with her mother's necklace, a nervous habit she'd developed since they'd lost their apartment. The sight made Samuel's throat tight with emotion. He reached across the table and took her small hand in his. The words still wouldn't come, but he squeezed her fingers gently, trying to convey everything he couldn't say, that he loved her, that he would protect her, that somehow they would be okay, even if he wasn't sure how. The mac and cheese grew cold on their plates as father and daughter sat in silence, both aware that their fragile new normal might be slipping away, neither knowing quite what to say about it. Claire Whitmore sat at the head of the long mahogany conference table, her back straight and her expression carefully neutral. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the faces of 12 board members. Papers rustled. Someone coughed. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Miss Whitmore." Richard Bennett, a senior board member, cleared his throat. His wire-rimmed glasses caught the light as he shuffled through some documents. "We need to address the situation with the janitor and his daughter." Claire's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her pen. "Samuel Ortiz," she corrected, her voice steady. "And his daughter's name is Sophia." "Yes. Well," Richard continued, frowning. "Housing employees in company property sets a concerning precedent. Several shareholders have expressed their concerns." Margaret Chin, another board member, nodded vigorously. "What's to stop other employees from claiming hardship? We're a technology company, not a homeless shelter." Claire felt heat rise in her chest, but kept her voice level. "Mr. Ortiz is a dedicated employee who fell on hard times after losing his wife to cancer. This is a temporary arrangement." "With all due respect," Thomas Walker cut in, his expensive suit rustling as he leaned forward. "You've crossed a professional line. The liability issues alone have been addressed," Claire interrupted. "Legal has reviewed everything. And might I remind everyone that employee morale has improved significantly since Sophia's arrival?" She pulled out a folder and began distributing charts. "Productivity is up 12% across all departments. Sick days have decreased. The thank you note Sophia leaves." "Charming as they may be," Margaret interrupted, "we can't run a corporation on children's drawings." Outside the conference room, Samuel pushed his cleaning cart past the glass walls. He could see the serious faces inside, the way they turned to watch him pass. His shoulders hunched slightly, but he kept moving. Back in the meeting, Claire stood up, placing both hands on the table. Samuel Ortiz works harder than anyone I've seen. He's here every night, maintaining our building, while raising an 8-year-old daughter alone. The guest suite was sitting empty. It's meant for visiting executives, Richard interjected. Not charity cases. Claire's eyes flashed. Is that what we've become? A company so focused on the bottom line that we've forgotten about basic human dignity? The room fell silent. Claire could hear the soft whir of the air conditioning. I understand your compassion, Thomas said finally, his tone gentler, but the shareholders are worried about the company's image. Having a homeless janitor, former homeless janitor, Claire corrected sharply, living on company property could be seen as inappropriate. What if the media gets wind of this? As if on cue, Samuel appeared in the doorway, holding a stack of papers someone had dropped. He knocked softly. Come in, Mr. Ortiz, Claire called, noticing how some board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Samuel entered quietly, his movements careful and deliberate. Sorry to interrupt. These fell outside. He placed the papers on the table, then turned to Claire. Ma'am, I've been hearing things. If I'm causing problems, Sophia and I can leave. We don't want to make trouble. Claire saw the dignity in his bearing, despite his worn uniform and calloused hands. That won't be necessary, Mr. Ortiz. Please continue with your duties. After Samuel left, Claire turned back to the board. That man would rather live in his car than let his daughter go into foster care. He works 2 jobs to make ends meet. Are we really suggesting we throw them back onto the street? Margaret sighed. Nobody wants that, Claire. But we have responsibilities to our shareholders and to our humanity, Claire countered. The suite costs us nothing. Samuel's work is exemplary. His daughter has brought unexpected joy to this office. I'm not asking for a company-wide housing program. I'm asking for understanding in one exceptional case. The board members exchanged glances. Richard removed his glasses, polishing them with his handkerchief. We'll need to put this to a vote at the next shareholders' meeting. In the meantime, document everything. We need to protect the company legally. Claire nodded, knowing this wasn't over. The meeting adjourned, and board members filed out, their expensive shoes clicking on the polished floor. Later that evening, Samuel walked Sophia back to the guest suite after picking her up from the after-school program. They passed a group of executives standing near the elevator, their conversation dying as Samuel and Sophia approached. The men wore tailored suits that probably cost more than Samuel made in months. Their eyes followed him coldly, disapproval evident in their stares. One whispered something to another, who smirked in response. Samuel felt Sophia's small hand in his and squeezed it gently. She looked up at him with worried eyes, sensing the tension. Daddy, are those men mad at us? No, mija, he said softly, though his heart ached at the lie. They're just busy with important business things. They waited for the next elevator, Samuel's shoulders rigid under the weight of those stairs. As the doors closed, he caught one last glimpse of the executives huddled together, their faces set in stern disapproval. He knew with crushing certainty that the warmth and safety they'd found here was in danger. Sophia hummed a little tune, swinging their joined hands, unaware of the storm brewing around them. Samuel held her hand tighter, his weathered fingers engulfing her small ones, as if he could protect her from what he knew was coming. The first rays of sunlight crept through the guest suite's window, casting a warm glow across Sophia's sleeping face. Samuel watched her for a moment, his heart full of love and worry. He carefully tucked the blanket around her shoulders before quietly getting dressed for work. In the pre-dawn quiet of the building, Samuel grabbed his cleaning cart with renewed determination. The weight of yesterday's board meeting hung over him like a cloud, but he refused to let it show. Instead, he channeled his anxiety into his work, attacking dirt and grime with fierce intensity. The hallways echoed with the rhythmic sound of his scrubbing. His muscles burned as he worked the buffing machine across the lobby floor, making it shine like glass. When his hands began to ache from gripping the mop handle too tightly, he simply adjusted his grip and kept going. You're here early, a familiar voice said. Samuel looked up to find Claire standing nearby, dressed in her usual crisp business suit. He straightened quickly, wiping his hands on his uniform. Miss Whitmore, he said, nodding respectfully. Just trying to stay ahead of things. Claire studied the gleaming floor, then looked at Samuel's reddened hands. You don't need to prove anything, Samuel. Your work has always been excellent. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I don't want to cause any trouble for you or the company. Claire's expression softened slightly. Actually, you've given me an idea. She gestured for him to follow her to a nearby bench. "Would you sit with me for a moment?" Samuel sat stiffly, conscious of his work clothes next to her expensive suit. Claire turned to face him, her usual businesslike demeanor giving way to something more thoughtful. "Your situation made me realize how many families in our community might be struggling," she said. "I'm thinking of starting a company outreach program connecting our employees with families who need support." Samuel blinked in surprise. "Like, helping other people who are homeless?" "Not just homeless families," Claire explained, warming to her topic. "Anyone facing hard times, medical bills, job loss, whatever the circumstance. Our employees could volunteer, mentor, or help in other ways." "That's very kind," Samuel said carefully. "But why are you telling me this?" Claire met his eyes directly. "Because I'd like you to help launch it. Would you be willing to share your story at tomorrow's staff meeting?" Samuel's throat went dry. "I don't know if I can." "Your story could help people understand," Claire pressed gently. "Help them see past their assumptions. You don't have to share anything you're not comfortable with." Samuel thought of Sophia's face when she'd first seen the guest suite, her joy at having a real bed again. Maybe sharing their story could help other children have moments like that. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll try." The next morning, Samuel stood at the front of the packed conference room, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the podium. Rows of employees watched him expectantly, the same people who usually walked past him in the halls without a second glance. Claire sat in the front row, giving him an encouraging nod. Samuel took a deep breath and began to speak. "Most of you probably know me as the night janitor," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. He cleared his throat and tried again, stronger this time. "But I'm also a father. My daughter Sophia is 8 years old. She loves drawing, makes friends with everyone she meets, and has the most beautiful laugh I've ever heard." The room grew quieter as he continued. 2 years ago, my wife Maria got sick. Cancer. We thought we had good insurance, but the bills kept coming. After we lost her, I couldn't keep up with rent anymore, but I couldn't let Sophia go into foster care. She's all I have left. Samuel's voice cracked slightly. He paused, gathering himself. "Living in our car wasn't easy, but every morning, Sophia would wake up smiling. She'd tell me everything was going to be okay, even when I couldn't believe it myself. Her laugh, it gave me strength to keep going, to keep trying." The silence in the room was complete now. Samuel saw several people wiping their eyes. Even some of the executives who had looked at him so coldly before were listening intently. "I used to think asking for help meant I was failing as a father," Samuel continued. "But someone showed me that accepting help takes its own kind of courage." He glanced at Claire, who smiled softly. "And sometimes, when you let people help you, you end up helping them too." As Samuel finished speaking, the room remained hushed. In that moment of silence, he saw something change in the faces before him. Recognition, understanding, and most surprisingly, respect. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the company's conference room as Claire stood before a group of eager employees. Posters lined the walls, showing smiling faces, and the words, "Together we rise," in bold letters. The room buzzed with excitement as she explained the details of their new community outreach program. "And none of this would have been possible," Claire said, her voice warm with sincerity, "without the inspiration of someone very special." She gestured to Samuel, who sat quietly in the back row. Samuel Ortiz and his daughter Sophia showed us what real courage looks like. Samuel ducked his head, uncomfortable with the attention, but Sophia, sitting beside him, beamed with pride. She wore a neat blue dress Claire had bought her dark hair tied back with matching ribbons. As volunteers signed up for different roles, Sophia moved through the crowd with a basket of homemade cookies she'd baked in their suite's tiny kitchen. "Would you like one?" she asked each person, her smile brightening the room. "My daddy helped me make them." The employees couldn't resist her charm. Even the most serious executives found themselves grinning as they accepted cookies from the little girl who had become the heart of their company. Over the next few weeks, the program took shape. Conference rooms transformed into donation centers filled with clothes, school supplies, and household items. Employees spent lunch breaks sorting through contributions and organizing delivery schedules to local shelters. Samuel watched in amazement as people he'd only known as faces to clean up after became passionate volunteers. The marketing team created beautiful brochures featuring stories of hope. The IT department set up a website to coordinate efforts. Even the accounting department got involved, organizing fundraising events. Sophia's artwork appeared everywhere. Bright crayon drawings of helping hands and happy families decorated bulletin boards and cubicle walls. Her latest masterpiece, showing the whole company holding hands in a circle, hung proudly in the main lobby. One Tuesday morning, a local news van pulled into the parking lot. The reporter, a kind-faced woman named Maria, interviewed Claire about the initiative. Samuel tried to stay out of sight, pushing his cleaning cart past the cameras, but Claire called him over. "This is the man who inspired it all," she said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Samuel, would you share your story?" Samuel's throat tightened, but he looked at Sophia, who gave him a thumbs up from behind the camera. Taking a deep breath, he spoke from his heart about losing his wife, about choosing homelessness over losing his daughter, and about finding hope through unexpected kindness. The story aired that evening. Samuel and Sophia watched it together in their suite, sharing a pizza Claire had sent up. On screen, Samuel's quiet dignity touched viewers across the city. Sophia squealed with delight when she saw herself waving in the background. "Daddy, you're famous," she giggled, hugging him tight. The next day, calls poured in from other companies wanting to start similar programs. Local shelters reported increased donations. Samuel's inbox filled with messages from people sharing their own struggles and thanking him for his courage. At Sophia's school, things changed too. Her teacher, who had watched the news, pulled Samuel aside during pickup. "Sophia's been different lately," she said warmly. "More confident, more engaged." She told the class about the program during show and tell. The other children were fascinated. Sophia's latest art project hung on the classroom wall, a detailed drawing of the company building with rays of sunshine streaming from its windows. Below it, she'd written in careful letters, "Where hope lives." Back at work, Samuel noticed people treated him differently. No longer just the invisible janitor, he received smiles, waves, and genuine conversations. In the break room, employees asked his advice about working with shelter families. His experiences, once a source of shame, became valuable insight. Claire invited him to weekly program meetings where his practical suggestions helped shape policies. He knew firsthand what families needed most, not just material help, but dignity and understanding. His quiet wisdom earned respect from even the most skeptical executives. One particularly busy afternoon, Samuel found Claire in her office, surrounded by papers and looking overwhelmed. Without a word, he brought her a cup of coffee, made exactly how she liked it, something he'd noticed during his evening cleaning rounds. "Thank you, Samuel," she said, surprise and gratitude in her voice. "You know, when I first started this program, I thought we were helping you, but you've helped us more than you know. You've reminded us what really matters." That evening, as golden sunset light filled their cozy suite, Samuel helped Sophia with her homework at their small kitchen table. She worked on multiplication tables while humming softly, her feet swinging beneath her chair. The walls around them displayed her growing collection of artwork, each piece a celebration of their new life. After homework, they shared a simple dinner of rice and beans, talking about their day. Sophia chatted excitedly about her friend's upcoming birthday party, the first one she'd been invited to since starting at her new school. "And guess what, Daddy?" she said, eyes sparkling. "Maria from the TV called my teacher. She wants to do another story about kids helping kids. She asked if I could show other children how to make thank you cards like mine." Samuel watched his daughter talk, his heart full. Gone was the worried look she used to carry, the careful way she used to avoid mentioning where they lived. In its place was pure childhood joy, the kind he'd feared she might never know again. Bath time and bedtime rituals followed their usual pattern, but tonight felt different. As Samuel tucked the blanket around Sophia in her small but comfortable bed, so different from the car's back seat where she'd slept just months ago, he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Sophia yawned, snuggling into her pillow. "Daddy," she murmured sleepily, "I love our new home, and I love that we're helping other people find homes too." Samuel smoothed her hair back, his throat tight with emotion. "Things are finally changing, Mihija," he whispered, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe it. The television crew's van pulled into the company parking lot early that morning, their equipment gleaming in the autumn sunlight. Samuel watched from the window of the guest suite, his stomach doing nervous flips. Sophia bounced excitedly beside him, already dressed in her favorite blue dress and white shoes. "Daddy, we're going to be on TV," she squealed, pressing her small hands against the glass. Samuel straightened his borrowed tie for the 10th time. Claire had insisted he wear one of the spare suits from the executive wardrobe for the interview. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, so different from his usual janitor's uniform. "Remember, Mihija, we're just telling our story to help other people," he said softly, smoothing Sophia's hair. "Nothing fancy. A knock at the door made him jump. Claire stood there in her usual power suit, but her smile was warm. "Ready? The crew is setting up in the main conference room." Samuel nodded, though his hands trembled slightly. Sophia slipped her tiny hand into his, and somehow that made everything steadier. The hallways buzzed with excitement. Employees peeked out of their offices, offering encouraging smiles and thumbs up as they passed. Samuel felt his cheeks flush with each friendly gesture. Just months ago, these same people had barely noticed him pushing his cleaning cart. The conference room had been transformed. Bright lights stood on tall stands, and cameras pointed at 2 comfortable chairs. The interviewer, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, greeted them warmly. "Mr. Ortiz," she said, "we've heard wonderful things about you and your daughter. Please, make yourselves comfortable." Sophia immediately charmed the crew, showing them her latest drawings while the sound technician fitted Samuel with a microphone. Claire watched from the corner, arms crossed but smiling, as Patricia began the interview. "Tell us about your journey, Mr. Ortiz," she prompted gently. Samuel's voice wavered at first, as he described losing his wife, the mounting medical bills, and those first terrifying nights in the car. But when he spoke about Claire's unexpected kindness, his words grew stronger. "She saw us as people, not problems," he said, glancing at Claire. "And that changed everything." Sophia sat quietly beside him, occasionally adding her own perspective with the disarming honesty of a child. "Miss Claire gave us a home," she declared proudly. "And now Daddy helps other families too." The camera captured it all. The warmth between father and daughter, the genuine gratitude in Samuel's eyes, and the way other employees kept dropping by to share their own stories about the outreach program. By afternoon, the footage was already being edited for the evening news. Someone from marketing mentioned it was going viral on social media. Samuel didn't fully understand what that meant until his phone started buzzing with messages from old friends who'd seen clips online. The office was electric with excitement. People gathered in break rooms to watch the interview segments being shared. Even the usually stern-faced board members seemed pleased with the positive attention. "Did you see the comments?" one young executive asked another as Samuel passed. "People are calling us the most compassionate company in the state." Claire's assistant rushed up with a tablet full of statistics. "Ma'am, our social media engagement is through the roof. 3 major newspapers want follow-up interviews." Samuel tried to stay focused on his regular duties, but everywhere he turned, someone wanted to shake his hand or thank him for sharing his story. Sophia basked in the attention, proudly showing everyone her latest drawing. As evening approached, Claire appeared at the suite's door, holding several bags of takeout food. "I thought we could all use a quiet dinner after today's excitement," she said. Samuel hesitated, still adjusting to this new dynamic with his boss, but Sophia was already pulling plates from the cupboard. "Can we eat at the table like a real family?" she asked. The 3 of them settled around the small dining table, passing containers of Chinese food back and forth. Sophia giggled as Claire struggled with chopsticks, and Samuel found himself demonstrating the proper technique. "My wife used to tease me about being too precise with chopsticks," he said, surprising himself by mentioning her without the usual stab of pain. "Tell me more about her," Claire said softly, watching Sophia attempt to pick up a piece of broccoli. And suddenly Samuel was sharing stories, funny moments, tender memories, all the things he'd kept locked away. Sophia chimed in with her own remembered snippets, and Claire listened with genuine interest, occasionally sharing tales of her late husband. The formal barriers between CEO and janitor dissolved over fortune cookies and laughter. Sophia had sauce on her chin, Claire's perfect hair was slightly mussed, and Samuel's borrowed tie hung loose around his neck. "Daddy, your laugh sounds like before," Sophia observed, making both adults pause. "Before?" Claire asked. "Before Mommy got sick," Sophia explained matter-of-factly, reaching for another cookie. "I missed that laugh." Samuel caught Claire's eye across the table, saw his own mixture of joy and healing reflected there. For the first time since losing his wife, the suite felt like more than just a temporary shelter. It felt like home. The evening stretched on with comfortable conversation and shared smiles. Sophia drew pictures for both adults, signing them with extra hearts. When she finally dozed off on the small couch, Samuel and Claire sat in companionable silence. "Thank you," Samuel said quietly. "Not just for today, but for everything." Claire shook her head. "You've given this company something far more valuable than I could have imagined. You've given us our humanity back." They looked at Sophia's peaceful face, both understanding that sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about the people who choose to stand beside you when the world seems darkest. As Claire gathered her things to leave, Sophia stirred just enough to mumble, "Good night, Miss Claire," in a sleepy voice that made them both smile. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Samuel to tuck his daughter into bed, his heart fuller than it had been in years. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Samuel guided his mop across the empty hallways. Most employees had gone home hours ago, leaving behind only the occasional buzz of a vending machine and the squeak of his shoes against the polished floor. He liked these quiet moments. They gave him time to think about Sophia's upcoming school recital. His daughter had been practicing her lines every night, determined to perfect her role as the narrator in their class play about space exploration. The thought of her excitement brought a smile to his tired face. The sound of voices drifting from the conference room made him pause. The door was slightly ajar, spilling yellow light into the dim corridor. Samuel recognized the voices, Marcus Wheeler and David Thompson, two senior executives who always seemed to look right through him. "The publicity is getting out of hand," Marcus was saying. "Have you seen the comments online? People are calling us a charity case." "Claire's not thinking straight," David replied. "We need to do our homework on this janitor. Nobody's that clean." Samuel's hand tightened around the mop handle. His heart began to race. "I've got a friend in records," Marcus continued. "He can pull everything: employment, history, criminal background, the works. Everyone's got skeletons." Samuel backed away quietly, his shoes silent now on the freshly mopped floor. The memory he'd tried so hard to forget came rushing back. The protest rally 15 years ago. The confusion. The police sirens. He'd been 19, idealistic, joining a peaceful demonstration against unfair housing practices. When the crowd had surged forward, he'd been caught in the chaos. The charge had been dismissed, but the arrest remained on his record like a stubborn stain. In the janitor's closet, Samuel leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. The smell of cleaning supplies, bleach, floor wax, window cleaner, usually comforted him. Tonight, they made his head spin. He pulled out his phone and looked at the pictures Sophia had sent him earlier. Her bright smile as she held up the costume she'd made for the recital, a cardboard astronaut helmet decorated with silver paint and star stickers. His fingers trembled as he typed a message to Claire, "Need to talk when you have a moment." He deleted it immediately. What would he say? That he was scared of his past? That he'd been arrested once? It would only make him look guilty of something worse. The drive back to the guest suite felt longer than usual. Each streetlight cast shadows that seemed to judge him, remind him of his mistakes. The security guard at the gate gave his usual friendly wave, but Samuel wondered if tomorrow that same guard would be told to turn him away. When he opened the door to their temporary home, Sophia's voice rang out from the small living room. "Daddy, come see my costume. I added more stars." She twirled in front of him, the cardboard helmet tilted adorably to one side. Silver glitter dusted her cheeks, and her eyes sparkled with pride. "Miss Johnson says I have the most important part because I get to tell everyone about the planets and the astronauts." Samuel forced a smile, kneeling to adjust her helmet. "It looks perfect, Mihija. You're going to be the best narrator ever. Will you help me practice my lines again?" She pulled out her wrinkled script, covered in highlighted sections and small doodles in the margins. "Of course." He sat on their small couch, patting the spot next to him. As Sophia snuggled close, that familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and craft glue wrapped around him like a shield against his fears. "In 1969, Sophia began, her voice clear and confident, "brave astronauts flew to the moon for the first time." Samuel listened, nodding encouragingly, but his mind kept drifting to the conversation he'd overheard. Would they wait until after the recital to confront him? Would they make him leave before Sophia got her moment to shine? "Daddy?" Sophia's voice pulled him back. "You're supposed to say, 'and then what happened?'" "Lo siento, baby. I was just thinking about how proud I am of you." He hugged her close, breathing in her innocence, her hope. After helping Sophia with her homework and making sure she had everything ready for school tomorrow, Samuel tucked her into bed. The small bedroom felt safe, with its nightlight casting star patterns on the ceiling, a gift from one of the kind-hearted employees. "Will you tell me about Mama?" Sophia asked sleepily, clutching her worn teddy bear. Samuel sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her dark hair. "Your mama loved the stars too, just like you. She used to say that even when things seem dark, the stars are always there, even if we can't see them. Like angels watching over us?" "Exactly like that." He kissed her forehead, adjusting her blanket. "Sweet dreams, mi amor." Sophia's breathing soon settled into the rhythm of sleep, but Samuel remained sitting there, watching her peaceful face. The moonlight filtering through the window reminded him of another night, 15 years ago, when he'd sat in a cold police station, trying to explain that he'd only wanted to make a difference. To stand up for what was right? Standing up, he walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. The company building loomed in the distance, its windows dark except for the top floor where Claire often worked late. He wondered if she was there now, if she already knew about his past, if she was regretting her kindness. His reflection in the window looked tired, worried. "Please," he whispered to the night sky, to whatever angels might be listening, "let them stay buried." The old memories, the fear, the shame, he couldn't let them destroy everything he'd built for Sophia. The digital clock on Sophia's nightstand blinked 11:23 p.m. In just 2 days, she would stand on stage, telling stories about brave explorers who reached for the stars. Samuel watched her sleeping form, her small chest rising and falling, and made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would be there in that audience, watching his daughter shine. He thought about the executives who would soon be digging through his past, about the dismissal that might come any day now. But looking at Sophia, peaceful in her dreams, he felt a flicker of determination. He'd survived worse. They'd survived worse. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Samuel's shoes squeaked against the freshly waxed floor as he pushed his cleaning cart through the office corridors early that morning. Something felt different. The usual morning greetings from early bird employees turned into sudden keyboard clicking and coffee cup lifting as he passed. Eyes that normally met his with warm smiles now found fascinating things to study on computer screens. His stomach twisted when he noticed Martha from accounting literally turn and walk the other way when she saw him coming. Martha, who just yesterday had brought Sophia a handmade friendship bracelet. At his small cleaning supply closet, Samuel pulled out his phone to check his emails. His hands trembled slightly as he saw the unread count. 47. That wasn't normal. The first one made his heart stop. Important. Security concern. Background check alert. The message had been forwarded dozens of times, each new recipient adding to the chain. Samuel's vision blurred as he read the carefully crafted words that twisted his past into something sinister. The peaceful protest was described as a violent riot. His dismissed charge became a criminal record. Attached were scanned police documents, his teenage mugshot looking scared and angry. "Can we trust someone with this history around our children?" the email questioned. "What else is he hiding?" The signature line belonged to Marcus Wheeler. Samuel's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia's teacher. "Mr. Ortiz, could you please come to the school when convenient? We need to discuss some concerns raised by other parents." The cleaning cart suddenly felt like the only thing holding him upright. He leaned against it, trying to breathe normally. Through the supply closet's small window, he could see employees gathered in clusters, phones out, whispering and glancing his way. Claire was in meetings all morning, probably dealing with this mess. The outreach program's donation page, which had been growing steadily, showed no new contributions since last night. Comment sections were filling with questions about the company's judgment in trusting a criminal. During his lunch break, Samuel walked to Sophia's school, his feet heavy with dread. The front office staff, usually cheerful, treated him with cool professionalism. Sophia's teacher, Miss Reynolds, spoke in careful, measured tones about concerns and school policy and the comfort of other families. "Some parents are requesting their children be moved away from Sophia's table," she explained, not quite meeting his eyes. "I'm sure you understand our position." Samuel understood all too well. He'd seen this before, the way fear and prejudice could poison everything they touched. Walking back to work, he passed a newsstand where a local tabloid blazed the headline, "Feel, Good Story Takes Dark Turn. Company's poster family hides criminal past." The afternoon dragged on endlessly. Samuel cleaned methodically, trying to lose himself in the familiar motions of mop and cloth, but he couldn't escape the whispers, the sideways glances, the sudden silences when he entered a room. At 3 o'clock, his phone lit up with a message from Sophia. "Daddy, can you come get me? Nobody will sit with me at lunch today." The words hit him like physical blows. He'd promised to protect her, to give her a better life. Instead, his past had reached out with cruel hands to hurt her all over again. The walk to Sophia's school felt like marching to his own execution. She stood alone by the front gate, her small shoulders hunched, clutching her backpack like a shield. When she saw him, she ran into his arms, burying her face in his shirt. "Why is everyone mad at us?" she whispered. "Jenny's mom said she can't come to my birthday party anymore." Samuel held her close, his heart breaking. "Sometimes people don't understand things, Mihija. Sometimes they get scared of what they don't know. But you're not scary, Daddy. You're good." The trust in her voice made his eyes burn. Back at the suite, he helped her with homework, made her favorite dinner, and tried to act normal. But after she went to bed, Samuel sat at their small kitchen table, staring at nothing. The clock ticked past midnight. He thought about Claire, who had risked so much to help them, about the outreach program, now tainted by association with him, about Sophia, who would have to face those whispers and stares every day at school. His arrest record from 15 years ago lay on the table, printed from one of the news articles. The teenage version of himself stared back, eyes full of fury at the injustice of the world. He'd been trying to help people back then too, trying to fight for fair housing. And look where it had got him. Samuel moved silently through the suite, gathering essential items into his old duffel bag. Clothes, documents, Sophia's favorite stuffed animal, the photo album with pictures of her mother. He wrote 2 notes with trembling hands, one for Claire, thanking her for everything, and one for the cleaning supervisor, apologizing for leaving without notice. The night pressed against the windows as he packed, the city lights blurring through unshed tears. From Sophia's room came the soft sound of her breathing, peaceful in sleep, unaware that her world was about to change again. Samuel paused in her doorway, watching the starlight patterns from her nightlight dance across her face. She looked so much like her mother, the same gentle curve of cheek, the same stubborn chin, the same capacity for joy, even in hard times. "I'm sorry, mi amor," he whispered. "I thought I could give you better than this." The duffel bag waited by the door, heavy with their belongings. In a few hours, before the sun rose, they would disappear. Start over somewhere new, somewhere their past couldn't find them. Somewhere Sophia wouldn't have to feel ashamed of her father. Samuel sank into the couch, setting his phone alarm for 4 a.m. He would wake Sophia then, try to make it seem like an adventure instead of what it really was. Another failure, another surrender to the unfairness of life. The night ticked by slowly. Samuel sat in the darkness, listening to his daughter's peaceful breathing from the other room, each minute bringing them closer to another beginning he hadn't wanted, another goodbye they shouldn't have to say. The morning sun cast long shadows through the office building's windows as Claire Whitmore's heels clicked rapidly across the marble lobby. Something didn't feel right. Samuel hadn't answered her texts about the leaked email, and Sophia hadn't been seen in the cafeteria for breakfast. When she reached the guest suite door, her knocks echoed hollowly. No response. Claire fumbled with her master key, hand shaking slightly as she unlocked the door. "Samuel? Sophia?" Her voice fell flat in the empty space. The suite felt cold, abandoned. The beds were neatly made, but the closet door hung open, hangers swaying slightly empty now of the few clothes they'd owned. The small table where Sophia usually did her homework was bare, except for a single piece of paper. Claire's throat tightened as she picked up the crayon drawing. Sophia's childish but careful strokes showed a tall figure with Claire's signature blazer and neat bun, but with sweeping angel wings sprouting from the back. Next to the figure was a smaller one, Sophia herself, holding the angel Claire's hand. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, "Thank you for being our angel, Miss Claire." "Oh, Samuel," Claire whispered, sinking onto the edge of the bed. "Why didn't you let me help?" She pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the keys as she texted her network of contacts, shelter managers, local business owners, anyone who might have seen them. The responses trickled in slowly. "No sign of them. Haven't seen them. We'll keep an eye out." Claire paced the suite, her usual composed demeanor cracking. The bathroom still held the faintest scent of Sophia's strawberry shampoo. A forgotten hair ribbon lay under the bed. Each small reminder felt like a punch to the gut. She called the school Sophia hadn't shown up for class. The local shelters had no record of them checking in. Even the police could only file a general welfare check, since technically Samuel had every right to leave. Hours blurred together as Claire searched. She drove through neighborhoods where homeless families often gathered, showing Samuel and Sophia's pictures to anyone who would look. The rain started sometime in the afternoon, a steady drizzle that matched her growing despair. A text came in from a convenience store owner on the edge of town. He'd seen Samuel's distinctive old sedan heading toward the industrial district. Claire's tires squealed as she turned toward that area, wipers fighting the increasing downpour. The abandoned lot appeared through the rain-streaked windshield, a vast empty space between defunct warehouses. And there, under a flickering street lamp, sat Samuel's car. Claire's heart leaped, then immediately sank as she pulled up beside it. The sedan was empty, water pooling on its rusted hood. Through the windows, she could see the pile of blankets in the back seat where Sophia used to sleep. A child's math workbook lay forgotten on the floor, but no sign of Samuel or Sophia themselves. Claire stood in the rain, her designer suit soaking through, staring at the abandoned car. It seemed to mock her with its emptiness, a symbol of her failure to protect them. The drawing in her pocket felt heavy, its innocent hope now a painful reminder of what she'd lost. She pressed her hand against the cold metal of the car's hood, remembering that first morning she'd found them here, how different things could have been if she'd handled the situation better, moved faster, protected them more fiercely from the corporate wolves who'd driven them away. The rain drummed steadily on the car's roof, washing away any traces of where Samuel and Sophia might have gone. Claire stood there, drenched and defeated. As darkness settled over the lot, the empty car sat silent, a hollow shell echoing with loss, while the city's lights flickered distantly through the rain. The neon sign of the Starlight Motel buzzed and flickered, casting an eerie pink glow through the thin curtains of room 114. Samuel Ortiz sat on the edge of a sagging mattress, methodically counting the crumpled bills from his wallet. $23.40. That's all that remained after paying for 2 nights at this run-down place on the outskirts of town. The room smelled of old cigarettes and cheap cleaning products. A water stain spread across the ceiling like a dark cloud, and the carpet was worn thin in patches. But it was shelter, the only kind they could afford now. Sophia lay curled up on the other bed, her small frame wrapped in the blanket they'd brought from the company suite. She wasn't sleeping, though. Samuel could tell by her breathing, the way it hitched every now and then with poorly concealed sniffles. "Daddy?" Her voice was small in the darkness. "Why did we have to leave Miss Claire?" Samuel's throat tightened. He tucked the money back into his wallet with trembling fingers. "Sometimes, mijita, we have to make hard choices to protect the people we care about." Sophia sat up, her hair mussed from trying to sleep. "But Miss Claire was protecting us. She gave us a home." "It's complicated, sweetheart." Samuel rubbed his face, feeling the stubble beneath his palms. "Those people at the company, they found out about something I did a long time ago, something that makes me look bad." "Was it really bad?" Sophia's eyes were wide with concern. "No, not really. I was very young, at a protest. The police arrested me, even though I hadn't done anything wrong." He sighed heavily. "But some people don't understand that. They only see what they want to see." Sophia slipped off her bed and came to sit beside him. She leaned against his arm, warm and solid. "Miss Claire would understand. She always understands. Miss Claire has already done too much for us. Now her job is in danger because of me." Samuel's voice cracked. "The board members, the shareholders, they're all angry with her for helping us. But the program was working. Everyone was happy. I saw them smiling more." Sophia's lip quivered. "And my drawings, people liked them." Samuel pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Yes, they did. You brought so much joy to that place, mi amor. But sometimes," he struggled to find the right words. "Sometimes, when people are afraid or angry, they forget about the good things. They only see the problems." The neon light outside pulsed steadily, painting the worn wallpaper in alternating shades of pink and shadow. A car drove past on the highway, its headlights briefly illuminating the room before fading away. "I'm scared," Sophia whispered. "What if we have to live in the car again?" Samuel's heart clenched. "I won't let that happen. I'll find another job, a new place for us. But I like our place now. I like seeing Miss Claire every day." Sophia's voice grew stronger, more insistent. "She needs us too, Daddy. I can tell she's lonely sometimes, even though she tries to hide it." Samuel stood up and walked to the window, pushing aside the thin curtain. The motel's parking lot was nearly empty except for their old sedan and a couple of trucks. In the distance, the city's skyline glowed against the night sky. Somewhere in that sea of lights was the office building, the guest suite, and Claire, probably working late as usual. "Miss Claire is strong," he said quietly. "She's been running that company for years. She'll be fine without us causing trouble." "That's not true." Sophia jumped up from the bed. "Remember when she ate dinner with us? She laughed so much. I never saw her laugh like that before." Samuel closed his eyes, remembering. Claire had seemed different that night, relaxed, genuine, the hard shell of her CEO persona softening into something warmer. They'd shared takeout Chinese food at the small table in the suite, and Sophia had taught Claire how to use chopsticks properly. For a moment, it had felt like family. "And remember how proud she was when the TV people came?" Sophia continued, tugging at his sleeve. "She kept saying you inspired everyone. She believed in you, Daddy." "That's exactly why we had to leave," Samuel said, his voice rough. "I let her down. All that trust she put in me, all that faith. And now everyone's seeing her as foolish for helping us. Her reputation is ruined because of me." Sophia wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her face against his back. You always tell me that running away doesn't solve problems. That's what you said when I wanted to quit school, because Tommy made fun of us living in the car. Samuel's hands clenched on the windowsill. She was right, of course. How many times had he told her to be brave, to face her challenges head on? And here he was, fleeing in the middle of the night like a coward. But the shame burned too deeply. The headlines flashed in his mind. CEO's pet project revealed as ex-con. The whispers in the hallways, the cold stares from the board members. The way donations to the outreach program had dried up overnight. He destroyed something beautiful, something that could have helped so many families like theirs. Maybe she's better off without us, he whispered, watching the neon sign sputter and fade for a moment before blazing back to life. Sophia's grip tightened around him. No, Daddy, nobody's better off alone. Not us, and not Miss Claire either. The truth of her words hung in the musty air of the motel room, but Samuel couldn't bring himself to acknowledge them. Instead, he gently disentangled himself from Sophia's embrace and led her back to her bed. Try to get some sleep, Mahita, he said softly, tucking the blanket around her. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do next. But as he returned to the window, watching the endless stream of headlights on the distant highway, Samuel felt more lost than ever. The neon light continued its relentless rhythm, reminding him of all they'd left behind, the safety, the hope, the chance at a better life. And Claire's face appeared in his mind, not as the stern CEO, but as she'd looked that last evening they'd shared dinner, smiling, genuine, finally letting her guard down. Maybe she's better off without us, he repeated to himself, barely audible over the hum of the old air conditioning unit. But even as he said it, he knew Sophia was right. Running away had never solved anything. Claire slumped in her office chair, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her shoulders. The city lights twinkled beyond her window, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from Sophia's crayon drawing. Those simple lines captured something pure Claire, with angel wings, holding Sophia's tiny hand. A child's vision of hope, now crumpled from being held too many times. Her fingers traced the edges of the paper. The emptiness of the guest suite still haunted her. No sounds of Sophia's giggles echoing through the halls. No quiet footsteps of Samuel working late into the night. Just silence and the bitter taste of failure. What would you do, Thomas? She whispered, glancing at the photo of her late husband on her desk. His kind eyes seemed to watch her, unchanged by time. She remembered those early days after his death, the crushing loneliness, the whispers that she wasn't fit to run the company alone, the constant battle to prove herself worthy. Claire stood, walking to the window. Her reflection stared back, professional suit perfectly pressed, not a hair out of place. The armor she'd built over years of boardroom battles, but beneath it, she felt something crack. I was just like them, she said softly, pressing her hand against the cool glass. Memories flooded back, living in her car for 2 weeks after college, too proud to ask for help. The shame of showing up to job interviews in wrinkled clothes. The pain of watching Thomas fight cancer while medical bills mounted. She turned back to her desk, picking up a stack of reports. Profit margins, stock prices, shareholder concerns, empty numbers that meant nothing compared to the light in Sophia's eyes when she'd had her first warm breakfast in weeks. I've been fighting the wrong battle, Claire realized, her voice stronger now. She'd spent years proving she could be as tough as any male CEO when she should have been proving she could be more human than all of them. The phone on her desk buzzed. Her assistant's voice came through. The board members are asking about tomorrow's quarterly review. Cancel it. Claire cut in, straightening her spine. Schedule an emergency shareholder meeting instead. Full attendance required. But Mrs. Whitmore, the protocols. Damn the protocols, Claire said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. This is more important. She sat down at her computer, fingers flying over the keyboard. Years of carefully constructed corporate image dissolved as she typed her own story growing up in poverty, losing everything, fighting her way back. She wrote about Thomas's death and the lonely nights, wondering if she'd ever feel whole again. The words poured out, raw and honest. She wrote about seeing herself in Samuel's quiet dignity, in his desperate love for his daughter, about how Sophia's simple drawings had done more for company morale than any expensive team-building exercise. Hours passed. The sky outside turned from black to gray. Claire's eyes burned, but she kept writing. This wasn't just about Samuel anymore. It was about every person who'd ever been judged for circumstances beyond their control, every parent who'd sacrificed everything for their child, every human being who deserved a second chance. She printed the final draft, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. The first rays of sunrise painted her office in soft gold as she gathered her materials. A knock at the door made her look up. "The shareholders are confirming attendance," her assistant said, looking worried. "But Mrs. Whitmore, they're angry. They're saying this meeting could affect the stock price." "Let them be angry," Claire replied, standing tall. She picked up Sophia's drawing, carefully sliding it into her portfolio. Sometimes the right thing costs more than money. She walked to her office door, pausing to look back at Thomas's photo. For the first time in years, she felt truly worthy of his memory. She wasn't just fighting for her position anymore. She was fighting for the soul of her company. "Send the final confirmation," she told her assistant, steel and compassion mixing in her voice. "And Carol, thank you for staying late." The woman smiled, surprised by the personal acknowledgement. Claire headed toward the conference room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. With each step, her determination grew stronger. She would find Samuel and Sophia. She would make this right. And maybe, just maybe, she would finally become the leader she was meant to be. The morning sun streamed through the windows as Claire approached the conference room. She could hear voices inside, angry, concerned, confused. But she felt no fear. She had spent too long worrying about what others thought. Now it was time to show them what she truly believed. She gripped her portfolio tighter, Sophia's drawing safely inside. The board members would see more than numbers today. They would see humanity. They would see hope. They would see the truth she had finally embraced, that true leadership meant standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Claire took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. The voices behind the door grew louder, but her resolve only strengthened. She reached for the handle, determination burning in her eyes. It was time to fight for something bigger than profits. It was time to fight for faith and human dignity. The mahogany-paneled boardroom hummed with tense whispers as shareholders filed in, their expensive suits and stern faces, marking them as people who dealt in profits, not emotions. Claire stood at the window, watching reporters gather outside the building like vultures circling their prey. Her fingers traced the edge of Sophia's drawing, now carefully tucked into her jacket pocket. Board members settled into their leather chairs, shuffling papers and trading knowing looks. Claire recognized their expressions. She'd worn that same mask of cold efficiency countless times before. The head of the board, Richard Harrison, cleared his throat and adjusted his tie. "Miss Whitmore," he began, his voice carrying that patronizing tone she'd grown to despise. "I believe we all know why we're here. This situation with the janitor has become untenable." Claire turned from the window, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she approached the podium. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on her. She placed her hands on either side of the wooden stand, letting the familiar position of authority ground her. "Before you speak, Richard," she said, her voice steady but different from its usual sharp edge, "I'd like to tell you a story." A few board members shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how these meetings usually went. Claire pulled Sophia's drawing from her pocket, holding it up for everyone to see. "This morning, I found this on an empty bed in our company's guest suite. A little girl drew me with angel wings." She paused, letting the image sink in. "But I'm no angel. I'm just someone who remembers what it's like to have nothing but hope." She stepped away from the podium, moving to stand directly before the board table. "When I was 12, my mother and I lived in a car for 3 months, not unlike Samuel and Sophia. The revelation caused several shareholders to straighten in their seats. We'd lost everything after my father abandoned us. I remember watching my mother count pennies to buy bread, wearing the same clothes until they fell apart." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "But someone gave us a chance. A manager at a local diner hired my mother despite her lack of experience. That single act of faith changed our lives." The room remained silent, but the energy had shifted. Claire could feel it. She continued, pacing slowly along the length of the table. "I worked my way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs. When I entered the corporate world, I faced countless closed doors because I was a woman, because I didn't come from money, because I didn't fit the mold." She stopped, turning to face the group. "But I persevered, just like Samuel has persevered." From the back of the room, someone cleared their throat. Claire noticed several employees had slipped in, standing quietly along the walls. Word of the emergency meeting must have spread. "You're concerned about Samuel's arrest record?" She addressed the elephant in the room directly. He was wrongfully detained at a peaceful protest, fighting for better working conditions. The charges were dismissed. She let out a small laugh. "If anything, it shows his character. He stood up for what was right, even when it cost him." More employees filtered in, their presence growing like a wave of silent support. Claire's voice grew passionate, filling the room. We've built this company on innovation and progress, but what good is success if we can't use it to lift others up? Samuel's story isn't a liability. It's the very essence of what we should stand for. A young programmer from the IT department stepped forward. Miss Whitmore is right. I'll walk if Samuel goes. His voice trembled but held firm. Me too, called out another voice, then another. Soon the room buzzed with voices of support, employees standing shoulder to shoulder along the walls. Richard Harrison's face had turned an interesting shade of red. This is highly irregular, he sputtered, but Claire cut him off. What's irregular is forgetting our humanity in the pursuit of profit. She held up Sophia's drawing again. This little girl saw something in me and all of us that we've forgotten. The capacity to care, to give second chances, to believe in people. The head of marketing stood up from her seat. The outreach program Samuel inspired has generated more positive PR than our last 3 campaigns combined. Our social media engagement is up 200%, and employee satisfaction scores have never been higher, added the HR director, surprising everyone by speaking in Samuel's favor. Claire watched as the tide turned in the room. Even some of the harder-faced board members seemed to be softening. She pressed her advantage. I'm not asking you to ignore business sense. I'm asking you to expand your definition of good business. A company that stands for something, that gives people dignity and hope, that's a company people want to work for, buy from, and invest in. The room erupted in applause, starting with the employees and spreading until even some board members were nodding in approval. Claire felt something warm on her cheek and realized it was a tear. Richard Harrison raised his hands for quiet, his expression resigned. It seems we may have acted hastily in this matter. He cleared his throat. I move to officially endorse the outreach program and, he paused, glancing at the crowd of determined faces, and to retain Mr. Ortiz's employment. The vote was quick and unanimous. As Claire stepped away from the podium, employees pressed forward to shake her hand or offer words of support, but her mind was already elsewhere, wondering if Samuel would hear about what had happened here, praying he would understand that he wasn't alone anymore. She touched Sophia's drawing in her pocket, feeling the rough crayon marks through the paper. Maybe the little girl had seen something true after all, not an angel, but someone who remembered what it meant to need one. The flickering light from the motel television cast dancing shadows across the peeling wallpaper. Samuel sat on the edge of the sagging bed, his work uniform wrinkled from sleeping in it. Sophia curled beside him, her small hand wrapped around his arm as they watched the evening news. Suddenly, the anchor's voice caught their attention. In a surprising turn of events at Tech Solutions today, CEO Claire Whitmore made an emotional speech defending her controversial employee assistance program. The screen filled with Claire's image, standing tall at a podium. Her usual steel-like composure had been replaced with raw honesty as she spoke. I know what it means to struggle, to feel shame, to think you've lost everything. Her voice cracked slightly. I grew up in a neighborhood where dreams died young. My mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on our table. Samuel leaned forward, his throat tight. The camera panned across the packed boardroom, showing dozens of employees standing along the walls, their faces set with determination. When I met Samuel Ortiz, Claire continued, I didn't see a liability. I saw a father willing to sleep in his car to keep his daughter safe. I saw a man who, despite losing everything, shows up every night to work with dignity and grace. She paused, her eyes glistening. And if we turn our backs on him now, we're not just failing him, we're failing ourselves and everything this company claims to stand for. Daddy, look! Sophia bounced on the bed, pointing at the screen. Miss Claire is fighting for us. The news showed employees rising from their seats, some calling out in support. If Samuel goes, we go. Their voices merged into a powerful chorus of solidarity. Samuel's hands trembled as he watched Claire stand her ground against sharp questions from board members. She held up a familiar piece of paper, Sophia's drawing of her with angel wings. This, Claire's voice rang clear, is how an 8-year-old girl sees us. Not as profit margins or stock prices, but as angels who can lift others up. Are we going to prove her wrong? Sophia squeezed her father's arm tighter. See, Daddy, she never gave up on you. The weight of shame that had been crushing Samuel's chest began to lift. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he watched more footage of employees sharing stories about how his daughter's small acts of kindness had changed their workplace. Mihija, he whispered, pulling Sophia close. I've been so afraid, so worried about failing you again. You never failed me, Daddy, Sophia said with the simple wisdom of childhood. But running away isn't brave. You always tell me to be brave. Samuel looked around the dingy motel room, at the water stains on the ceiling, the crooked lamp, the single duffel bag containing their few possessions. This wasn't the life Sophia deserved. This wasn't the example he wanted to set. You're right, Pequeña. He stood up, squaring his shoulders. We need to go back. Sophia's face lit up. Really? Really? He helped her put on her jacket. We've been hiding long enough. They gathered their belongings quickly, Sophia clutching her worn sketchbook to her chest. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky pink as they waited at the bus stop. Samuel's heart pounded with each mile that brought them closer to the company headquarters. The bus dropped them off 2 blocks away. Samuel held Sophia's hand as they walked, each step feeling heavier than the last. But Sophia skipped beside him, humming softly, her faith in happy endings unwavering. The gleaming glass building loomed before them, its windows catching the morning light. Several news vans still dotted the parking lot, reporters doing early morning updates on the story. Samuel hesitated at the edge of the property, doubt creeping back in. Come on, Daddy. Sophia tugged his hand. Miss Claire is waiting. As if on cue, the main doors burst open. Claire emerged, already in her business attire, despite the early hour. She stopped mid-stride, spotting them across the plaza. For a moment, everything froze. The morning breeze, the distant traffic, even Samuel's breath. Then Sophia broke free from his grip, running toward Claire with her arms wide open. Miss Claire, we came back! Claire rushed forward, dropping her briefcase as she caught Sophia in a tight embrace. Her professional mask cracked completely as she held the little girl, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked up at Samuel, who stood rooted to the spot, shame and gratitude warring on his face. She straightened up, still keeping one arm around Sophia, and walked to him. Without a word, she gripped his hand, her eyes filled with tears, but also with fierce determination. Welcome home, she whispered. Samuel's vision blurred as 8 years of struggling alone, of trying to be both mother and father, of fighting to keep his dignity while sleeping in a car. It all came crashing down in that moment of simple acceptance. Claire's grip on his hand tightened, anchoring him. Sophia wrapped her arms around both their waists, creating a circle of connection none of them had expected, but all of them needed. Behind them, the sun climbed higher, warming their backs and casting long shadows across the plaza. The shadows stretched toward the building's entrance, pointing the way forward, showing them all the path home. Samuel's heart raced as he and Sophia walked through the familiar hallways of the company building. It had only been a few days since their return, but everything felt different now. The usual morning bustle had been replaced by an electric anticipation as employees gathered in the main conference hall. Daddy, look at all the people, Sophia whispered, squeezing his hand. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one they'd carefully ironed that morning in their temporary apartment, a proper place Claire had arranged while sorting out more permanent arrangements. The conference hall buzzed with activity. Rows of chairs faced a small stage where Claire stood at a podium, looking elegant in her navy suit. When Samuel and Sophia entered, heads turned, smiles broke out across faces. Then, someone started clapping. The applause spread like a wave, growing louder until it filled the room. Sophia beamed, but Samuel felt his cheeks grow warm. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. A few weeks ago, these same people had barely noticed him as he quietly went about his cleaning duties. There they are, Claire's voice carried through the speakers. Please, Samuel, Sophia, come up here. Samuel hesitated, but Sophia tugged him forward. They made their way through the crowd as people reached out to pat his shoulder or squeeze his arm. Some had tears in their eyes. The accounting manager, who'd always been kind to Sophia, gave her a gentle high five. As they climbed the steps to the stage, Samuel caught glimpses of familiar faces in the crowd. The cafeteria worker who'd snuck extra fruit into Sophia's breakfast. The security guard who'd watched over their car in the parking lot. The receptionist who'd helped Sophia with her homework. Claire gestured for them to join her at the podium. Many of you know Samuel Ortiz and his daughter Sophia, she began, her voice warm. Their story has touched all of us deeply. But today isn't just about celebrating their return, it's about creating lasting change. She turned to face Samuel directly. When I first found you sleeping in your car, I thought I was solving a problem. Instead, you taught all of us about dignity, resilience, and the power of community. Sophia slipped her small hand into Claire's, a gesture so natural it made several people in the audience sigh. Claire smiled down at her before continuing. That's why I'm proud to announce the launch of our Hope Housing Fund. This permanent initiative will dedicate a portion of our company's profits to helping families facing housing insecurity. We'll provide temporary housing, job training, and support services to help people get back on their feet. More applause filled the room. Samuel felt his throat tighten with emotion. But that's not all, Claire continued. Samuel and Sophia will be our first official family beneficiaries. And Samuel, she turned to him again, eyes bright. We'd like to offer you a new position as our community outreach coordinator. The room erupted in cheers. Samuel blinked. Sure, he'd misheard. Your experience, your compassion, and your understanding of what families go through these are invaluable qualities we need. Claire explained. You'll help us identify and support other families in need, while sharing your story to inspire change in our community. Sophia bounced on her toes, tugging at his sleeve. Daddy, you're going to help other people like us. Samuel looked out at the sea of friendly faces, then down at his daughter's shining eyes. The shame that had weighed him down for so long began to lift. These people didn't see him as just a janitor who'd fallen on hard times. They saw him as someone who mattered, someone who could make a difference. His voice cracked with emotion. He cleared his throat and tried again. I don't know what to say, except thank you. Thank you for seeing us when we felt invisible. Thank you for believing in us when we'd stopped believing in ourselves. Sophia wrapped her arms around his waist, and he placed a gentle hand on her head. Looking down at her dark curls, so like her mother's, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, solid hope that wrapped around his heart like a warm blanket. The applause started again, but this time it was accompanied by people standing up. Soon the entire room was on their feet, clapping and cheering. Some were wiping away tears. Others were hugging their colleagues. Claire stepped back from the podium, giving Samuel and Sophia their moment in the spotlight. Sophia waved to the crowd, her smile bright enough to light up the room. Samuel stood tall, no longer trying to make himself invisible. For the first time since losing his wife, since watching their life crumble under medical bills, since choosing homelessness over losing his daughter for the first time in years, he felt worthy of this second chance. Worthy of the trust these people were placing in him. Worthy of the future that stretched out before them, no longer dark and uncertain, but full of possibility. As the applause continued, Samuel looked down at Sophia, who beamed up at him with pure joy. In her eyes, he saw not just their past struggles, but their future triumphs. He saw mornings without fear, evenings in a real home, and the chance to help others find their way back from the edge of despair. He saw hope. The setting sun painted long shadows across the cafeteria floor as Samuel finished logging his hours for the day. His new position as community outreach coordinator still felt surreal, but he was slowly getting used to wearing business casual instead of his old janitor's uniform. As he walked past the cafeteria on his way to pick up Sophia from the company's after-school program, an unexpected sound made him pause. Laughter, followed by the distinctive swish of a push broom against tile. Samuel peeked through the doorway and had to blink twice to make sure he wasn't seeing things. There was Claire Whitmore, CEO of the company, awkwardly pushing a broom across the cafeteria floor. Her tailored blazer was draped over a nearby chair, and her silk blouse sleeves were rolled up to her elbows. She was making a valiant effort, but the pile of crumbs in front of her broom kept scattering instead of collecting. I don't think that's the most efficient technique, Samuel said, unable to hide his amusement. Claire looked up, startled, then broke into a self-deprecating smile. Is it that obvious? She gestured at the mess she was creating. I thought I'd try my hand at it. You made it look so easy all those months. Samuel walked over and gently took the broom from her hands. Here, let me show you. He demonstrated the proper sweeping motion, smooth and controlled. It's all in the wrist, see? And you have to keep the broom at an angle. Like this? Claire tried to copy his movement but ended up spinning in a small circle instead. They both burst out laughing. Maybe stick to running the company, Samuel teased. Something he never would have dared do just a few months ago. Leave the cleaning to the professionals. Oh, so now you're a professional suit wearer instead? Claire shot back, tugging playfully at his new tie. Mr. Community Outreach Coordinator? I'm learning, Samuel admitted, straightening the tie with mock dignity. Though I still feel more comfortable with a broom than a briefcase. That's exactly why you're perfect for this role, Claire said, her voice growing serious for a moment. You understand both worlds. You can bridge the gap. Before Samuel could respond, the patter of small feet echoed through the cafeteria. Sophia burst in, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, worksheet papers trailing behind her like confetti. Daddy! Miss Claire! She skidded to a stop, taking in the scene before her. "Are you cleaning, Miss Claire?" "Trying to," Claire chuckled. "Your father was just showing me how terrible I am at it." Sophia giggled, picking up one of the fallen papers. "Look what I drew in art class today." She held up a colorful picture, showing 3 figures, holding hands, one tall in a suit, one with long hair and business clothes, and a small one in the middle. Samuel's throat tightened with emotion as he recognized the simple but meaningful portrait of the 3 of them. Claire leaned down to examine the drawing, her eyes softening. "That's beautiful, Sophia," she said warmly, "though you made me look much taller than I actually am." "That's because you're strong," Sophia explained matter-of-factly. "Strong people look tall in drawings." Samuel watched as Claire blinked rapidly, clearly touched by the child's words. She reached out and squeezed Sophia's shoulder gently. "Well, I think it's time we all headed home," Claire said, retrieving her blazer from the chair. "Would you two like a ride? It's getting dark." "Can we, Daddy?" Sophia asked, bouncing on her toes. "Please?" Samuel smiled, remembering nights spent in their old car, how far they'd come. "Sure, Mihija. Thank you, Claire." Together, they walked through the quiet building. Sophia skipped between them, grabbing both their hands and swinging them as they walked. The motion was so natural, so familial, that Samuel felt his heart swell with gratitude. As they approached the exit, the office lights behind them cast a warm glow through the glass doors. Sophia stopped suddenly, turning to look up at Claire with those wise eyes that sometimes seemed too knowing for her 8 years. "You saved us, Miss Claire," she whispered, her small voice full of simple truth. Claire squeezed Sophia's hand, and Samuel could see the emotion playing across her face, the same mix of humility and joy he felt every day since they'd returned. The 3 of them stood there for a moment, bathed in the gentle light from the building that had become so much more than just a workplace. It had become their sanctuary, their second chance, their home. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below, and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Samuel Ortiz, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.